The day I paid off my parents' final credit card bill, I thought it would finally bring peace. The snow fell steadily outside the apartment window, each flake catching what little light filtered through the blinds. Eliza sat at her desk, her breath fogging the edge of the glass mug she held. A faint hum of jazz filled the room, barely drowning out the soft clink of ice against ceramic. The numbers on her banking app glowed in low brightness, $0, outstanding balance. She exhaled slowly, almost unsure how to feel. Relief? Pride? Emptiness? On the corkboard above her desk, a small Polaroid was pinned with a rusted clip, a family photo taken years ago at a county fair. Her smile in the picture looked too wide now, stretched by hope, maybe. Her parents stood on either side, arms around her shoulders, eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. Her phone buzzed. "Mom." "Sweetheart, we just got the notification. You did it. We're so grateful. You really didn't have to, but thank you." There was no emoji, no exclamation mark, just flat text, almost as if she had reminded them to pick up dry cleaning. Jude's voice floated from the kitchen, warm and teasing. "You done fixing the economy, boss lady?" Eliza smiled faintly. "Depends. Is 30 grand enough?" Jude peeked around the corner, dish towel slung over one shoulder. His brows lifted when he saw her expression. "They said thank you at least, right?" She nodded. "Technically." He disappeared into the kitchen again. "Technically is how I describe lukewarm pizza, not parental gratitude." She leaned back in her chair, her fingers tightening around the mug. "They've always struggled, Jude. I wanted to give them something that felt like breathing room. No pressure, just freedom." "And what about yours?" he asked gently. "Your breathing room?" She didn't answer. The snow outside thickened, blanketing the fire escape in white. Eliza reached for her laptop and began searching for something soft, something indulgent. She landed on a spa resort 2 hours away. Steam pools, facials, all inclusive. She selected a deluxe weekend package, hovering over the confirmation button for a moment before clicking. It felt ceremonial. A few hours later, she curled up on the sofa, scrolling through emails from work. Nothing urgent. Jude had gone to meet friends. The apartment, dim and still, held its breath. Then the message came. A photo, her parents, brightly lit, bundled in matching puffer coats, standing under the departure sign of Denver International Airport. Her mother's red lipstick was perfect, her father's suitcase gleaming in the background. The caption was a single sentence. "We're in Switzerland. Just wanted to celebrate your success." The room seemed to tilt slightly. She sat up, rereading it, her chest tightening like a fist closing slowly around her heart. Celebrate my success? With an international vacation I wasn't invited to? 2 days after I drained my savings for them? Another message followed, this time from her dad. "It's been so long since we took a trip together, just the two of us. Feels like we finally get to exhale thanks to you." Eliza blinked. She checked the timestamp. They had already boarded. A beat passed. Then she opened her banking app again, staring at the empty, pristine balance. It hadn't even had time to feel like a victory before it became a receipt. She got up, walked to the fridge, and pinned their photo next to a coupon for oat milk that had expired 2 weeks ago. Then, just as quickly, she pulled it down and dropped it face down on the counter. Her phone buzzed again. Another photo. First-class seats. Glasses of champagne. A blurry photo of fondue. "Cheers to you!" She gripped the back of the chair. Eliza stared at the photo, her hand frozen midair. "Wait, are you there right now?" My bank account was drained, but their smiles looked full. Outside, Denver sparkled with holiday lights. Storefronts twinkled red and gold. Somewhere downtown, a choir sang carols beneath strings of garland and glowing stars. Inside Eliza's apartment, the only light came from a small ceramic lamp and the blinking of her muted phone screen. She sat cross-legged on the couch, wrapped in her favorite sweater with one sleeve slightly unraveled near the wrist. Her phone buzzed again. The lock screen lit up with yet another photo. This one was from her mom, a blurry shot of golden cheese bubbling in a fondue pot. 2 hands dipped long forks into it. Champagne flutes sparkled in the corner of the frame. Her mother had captioned it simply, "Your dad says hi," followed by a winking emoji. Eliza didn't smile. She didn't even blink. Next came a wide shot of a ski lift crawling up a pristine alpine slope. Her dad was waving from the seat, bundled in gear that looked new, expensive. The timestamp said it had been sent 5 minutes ago. Her thumb hovered over the screen, uncertain whether to delete or just ignore it. No one had called. No one had asked if she was okay. No "Merry Christmas, Eliza," or "Did you eat yet?" Just this stream of curated moments, piped in from a country thousands of miles away, from people she had just saved from drowning in debt. She stood and wandered to the kitchen. The fridge was mostly empty. A single container of cranberry sauce sat untouched on the top shelf. She pulled a frozen dinner from the back, turkey, mashed potatoes, a sad square of stuffing, and peeled back the plastic. As the microwave hummed to life, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed, listening to the dull ticking of the second hand on the wall clock. Jude knocked twice before entering. "I come bearing not quite miracles," he said, holding up a grocery bag in one hand and a tiny potted pine tree in the other. Eliza gave him a tired smile. "You look like someone who's been ghosted by a country," he said, stepping in and kicking the door shut behind him. "More like ghosted by people who took a plane out of gratitude," she muttered. He unpacked the bag with a flourish. "Okay, I got us mismatched Christmas stuff. Don't judge. Also, this tree cost $5 and smells like floor cleaner. But hey, tradition starts somewhere." They sat at the kitchen table, Jude with his boxed macaroni, Eliza with her soggy turkey and potatoes, and clinked forks over plastic plates. He wore a red paper crown from an old holiday cracker. She let herself laugh when his broke mid-toast and landed in his mashed yams. After dinner, he dug out a string of old battery-powered lights from the hallway closet. They draped them over the curtain rod and let them blink wildly, pulsing blue and green like an off-brand rave. It was chaotic, silly, and just enough. She laughed again. This time, longer. But later, when he disappeared into the spare bedroom to call his sister, Eliza sat alone by the window with a lukewarm mug of cider. She scrolled through her camera roll, pausing at a draft email she'd written 6 months ago. The subject line read, "Application for Spring Term, Rocky Mountain Fashion Institute." She hadn't sent it. The cursor blinked below her final unsent sentence. "I've waited long enough." Her phone buzzed once more. A new notification from Facebook. Jude returned just as she opened it. "Don't look at it," he warned softly, already reading over her shoulder. It was a post from her mother, tagged at a chalet in Zermatt. "Proud to be celebrating our daughter's generosity with champagne in Zermatt." Dozens of likes. Comments like, "So lucky to have her," and "What a wonderful gift, Linda," popped up in real time. Eliza stared at the screen, hollow. Jude closed the laptop gently for her. "They don't know what it means to deserve you," he whispered. She said nothing, just sat there a moment longer, breathing in the static buzz of her own disbelief. Then quietly, she opened the laptop again, fingers steady now. "Cancel flight. Non-refundable," she muttered. If this was how they celebrated me, I wondered what punishment would look like. The fluorescent lights buzzed above her head in a rhythm too steady to ignore. Cold air hissed from the vent, slicing through the layers of blankets swaddled around her. Eliza opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the dim hospital ceiling. Everything smelled like antiseptic and something else. Plastic tubing, perhaps, or disappointment. The monitors beside her bed beeped with a mechanical indifference. A small IV bag swayed slightly from the hook above her, pulsing fluids into her wrist. Her throat was raw, her body aching like it had collapsed under something far heavier than the flu. She vaguely remembered the moment it happened, standing in the shower that morning, dizziness climbing like ivy up her spine, the room tilting, her knees giving out. Jude's voice had cut through the haze before everything went dark. Now he sat in the plastic chair beside her, slumped over with his hoodie pulled tight around him. An untouched cup of vending machine coffee rested on the windowsill, next to a brown paper bag that had his handwriting scrawled across it, 4E. A pair of fuzzy socks peeked from the top. She shifted slightly, enough to wake him. His eyes blinked open, bloodshot but sharp. "Hey, you're alive. Good." "Barely," she rasped. "You passed out mid-sentence. Scared the crap out of me. I think my body finally realized I haven't had a full day off since 2020. He didn't laugh. A knock on the door broke the silence. A woman in her 50s stepped in. Tall, no-nonsense energy, softened by calm eyes. She wore her stethoscope like a sash, arms crossed casually. "Eliza Graham?" she asked gently. "Yes." "I'm Dr. Morell. You had a mix of exhaustion, flu, and borderline dehydration. We've stabilized you, but you need rest. Actual rest. Not, I'm just checking emails while in bed rest." Eliza nodded, trying not to shrink beneath the weight of it all. Dr. Morell's eyes lingered a beat longer. "No visitors for now, okay? You need space." Jude cleared his throat. "I'm technically a roommate." "Then you're technically furniture," the doctor quipped, then winked before stepping out. The silence settled again. Snow tapped lightly against the hospital window. Flurries beginning to fall once more. Eliza closed her eyes. The tablet on her nightstand buzzed. She picked it up with trembling fingers. A video call was incoming, from her mother. She hesitated, thumb hovering, then tapped, "Accept." Her mother's face filled the screen, framed by warm lighting, glass windows, behind her showing a mountain skyline. "There you are," she sang out. "We're finally in the upgraded suite. It has a fireplace. Isn't that cute?" Eliza didn't respond. Her mother spun the camera around. A massive king-size bed, wine glasses, a velvet chaise. "Look at this, and the bathroom has heated floors." Heaven. Still, Eliza said nothing. After a long pause, her mother blinked. "Anyway, how's the weather there?" Eliza ended the call. No words, no expression, just a simple tap. She stared at the black screen for a long moment before slowly turning her head toward the wall above the desk. A familiar photo stared back at her. Her family at the lakeside 10 years ago. She reached toward the call button, then paused. Instead, she slowly peeled the photo off the corkboard and laid it face down in the drawer. She stared at the empty board. Blank, like something waiting to begin again. Later that night, after Jude had gone home to shower and recharge, Dr. Morell returned with a small paper folder in her hands. "You're not the first person I've met who forgot to breathe for 3 years straight," she said, placing the folder down. "You seem like the kind who holds everything up, for everyone else." Eliza didn't deny it. "Sometimes silence is the most powerful boundary," the doctor added, then left the room. Eliza opened the folder. Inside was a pamphlet about mental rest, followed by a short note scribbled on hospital stationery. "You're allowed to take up space that isn't earned by pain." She pulled her phone from the drawer, turned it on, and opened her password manager. One by one, she changed everything. Joint logins for the cable bill. Gone. Shared utility accounts. Locked. The auto transfer for her parents' rent. Canceled. The therapy payment her sister never acknowledged. Disconnected. No notice. No explanation. Just gone. Her bank app showed her breathing room return in numbers. It wasn't much, but it was hers now. Then, on impulse, she opened her old email drafts. There it was, the application to Rocky Mountain Fashion Institute. A dream she'd filed under someday. She didn't hit send, not yet. Instead, she whispered to the quiet room, to the snowy window, to herself. Let them celebrate me from a distance. It arrived 2 days after New Year's. A glossy postcard from Zermatt with a scribbled line. Wish you were here. Eliza stood by the mailbox, still in her house slippers, her breath forming ghosts in the early morning chill. She flipped the card over. Her name, printed in soft cursive, floated above her apartment number. No return address. Just the stamp of a European post office and a bright red lipstick kiss at the corner, smudged slightly by snow. She held it between 2 fingers like it might stain. Back upstairs, the heater hissed softly in the background. The sun hadn't fully broken through, but her apartment felt warmer somehow. Less cave, more cocoon. On the coffee table sat a half-empty mug of chamomile tea, lukewarm. A folded fleece blanket, a stack of color swatches where her dining table used to be. She stared at the postcard for a long while, the cartoon Alps beaming back at her, a smiling cartoon goat at the bottom corner. She pinned it to the fridge beside a list of grocery items she kept forgetting to buy. 5 minutes later, she tore it down. Jude arrived mid-morning with 2 almond croissants and a small cardboard box. He kicked off his boots and looked around. "Something's different," he said, scanning the space. "Less haunted." "I moved some things," Eliza said, not looking up from her laptop. "Or deleted them." He placed the pastries on the table, then handed her the box. "Found this when cleaning out my storage. Thought you might want it back." Inside was a pair of slightly rusted, worn-handled sewing scissors, her initials faintly etched near the hinge. She smiled without showing her teeth. "These made everything I wore my junior year." "And probably 90% of your therapy bills," he joked. She turned the scissors in her hand, thumb pressing against the groove where the blade had dulled with use. Her inbox pinged. She flipped the laptop screen toward herself. The subject line read, Tuition Reimbursement Program. You're eligible." Kayla from HR had written a short, warm message congratulating her. The company had launched a new initiative to support employees pursuing creative education. Full coverage, evening classes, no strings. Eliza reread it twice. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, her heart didn't skip out of panic, but curiosity. She moved the mouse and opened a second tab. The Rocky Mountain Fashion Institute's spring term enrollment page blinked at her like an open door. Her fingers moved almost independently. Name, address, transcript, upload portfolio. She clicked through, steady, certain. As she waited for the confirmation email, she opened her contacts list. A sea of names: mom, dad, joint Verizon account, family planner calendar. She deleted them one by one, blocked, unfriended, archived, gone. It wasn't rage, it wasn't revenge, it was stillness. She stood up and walked to the wall where her corkboard had once held family photos, birthday notes, and Christmas cards. Now it displayed muted palettes, fabric test swatches, and a quote from a designer she admired. "What they try to make you forget becomes your signature." Outside, the snow kept falling, but it no longer felt like it was burying her. She whispered to herself, "This year, I celebrate me." When the call stopped, the silence said more than any apology ever could. For the first time in weeks, Eliza woke up to nothing. No messages, no buzzing, no cheerful photo dumps from overseas. Just stillness, and it felt like exhaling underwater. She poured herself a cup of coffee, let it go cold, then drank it anyway. Outside, the snow had stopped, but the world was still wrapped in the hush of post-holiday calm. She sat on the edge of her couch, laptop open, cursor blinking. Then it began again, but not in her inbox. Facebook. Jude found it first, leaning against the doorway between the kitchen and living room, phone in hand, brows raised. "You want the good news or the rage-inducing kind?" Eliza looked up from her laptop. "Just say it." He flipped his phone toward her. Her mother's profile filled the screen. "After all we've sacrificed for her, our money, our comfort, our dreams, this is how we're repaid. Eliza won't even take our calls. Some children forget where they come from the moment they find success." A photo followed, her mother holding a half-empty wine glass, eyes red but deliberate. A caption scrolled beneath. "We're stranded in Zurich." She canceled everything. Flights, hotels. We're eating from vending machines. The post had nearly 400 likes and a growing chain of comments. "You poor thing. That's heartbreaking." How can a daughter treat her parents like that? Children these days... Eliza read in silence. Her knuckles whitened around the edge of her mug. Then a new comment appeared. From Evelyn Graham, her aunt. "You forgot to mention she was in the hospital when you left for Switzerland, or that she paid for your entire trip with her savings, or that she supported you both for a year. I was there. I brought her soup when she couldn't stand. She didn't forget where she came from. You forgot who she is." A beat passed. Then another reply came in, this time from one of her former high school teachers. "Is this the same Eliza who used to bring food to school events when your family couldn't afford it? The one who helped her mom's friends with rent? Unbelievable." The tide was turning. Still, the ache in her chest didn't lessen. This wasn't justice. It was exposure. And it left a film of shame, even when it fell on the right people. She closed the tab and stepped away from the screen. Later that afternoon, in the company's break room, whispers floated between microwave beeps and coffee pours. "That's her," someone whispered. "Eliza. She doesn't look like someone who'd ghost her parents." Maybe they weren't worth the call. She tried to ignore it, tried to pour her tea in peace, but then Maria from accounting slid a note across the table. A simple, handwritten line. "We believe you." Some of us come from families like that too. Jude met her at the elevator after lunch, holding 2 chocolate chip cookies. "Fuel for your truth list," he said, handing her one. She tilted her head. "What list?" "The one you need to write, not to post, just to get it out." That night, they sat on the floor of her apartment, backs against the couch, sharing a blanket and typing into a shared Google Doc. Line by line, they wrote, "Paid their rent for 11 months. Funded therapy sessions no one thanked me for. Hospitalized alone. Canceled trip I organized and paid for, then got shamed publicly." They didn't say much as they typed. The act itself was enough. Then, mid-sentence, her email pinged. She opened it, heart stalling for a second before leaping. "Congratulations! Your application to the Rocky Mountain Fashion Institute has been accepted." Her breath caught. Jude grinned beside her. "Told you." The doc remained open on the screen, cursor blinking beneath the last line. But Eliza didn't add more. She shut the laptop slowly. On impulse, she checked the Facebook post again. Newest comment. The only ones who showed up for Eliza were her coworkers, not her parents. Her eyes didn't blur. Not this time. She walked to her desk, opened her planner, and circled April 1st in red ink. Start of the new term. Then, with one final click, she logged out of every social account. Let them echo. I've got a runway to build. 3 months later, they showed up, uninvited, unchanged. The gallery pulsed with light. Rows of track fixtures gleamed above the polished floor, casting crisp shadows along the catwalk. Outside, Denver's spring wind whispered along the street, but inside, it was all silk, flashbulbs, and sharp anticipation. Eliza stood backstage, fingers trailing the hem of her final piece, deep crimson silk with a jagged, hand-stitched seam running diagonally across the back like a scar. The label inside read only one word: redemption. Jude adjusted her collar, then stepped back to admire her from a short distance. "You ready?" She nodded once, her breath steady. "As I'll ever be." The crowd quieted, spotlights narrowed. Then, one by one, her models stepped out onto the runway. Her first look was raw, neutral tones layered over textured cuts, sleeves unfinished on purpose. The second, a structured jacket with asymmetrical stitching lined with muted lavender. The third, a flowing dress dyed in fading reds, inspired by the blood she hadn't shed but had bled anyway, silently, over years. Each piece was a memory made wearable. Each seam told a version of her story she had never spoken aloud. As the final model disappeared behind the curtain, the audience erupted into applause. Then she saw them, near the back of the room, trying not to look out of place amid the art critics and alumni judges. Her father in a stiff suit he hadn't worn since her high school graduation. Her mother in a cream shawl, fingers clutched tightly at her chest. No programs in their hands, just blank faces and eyes fixed on her. Eliza's spine straightened. Her heels felt steadier against the concrete floor. She didn't flinch. She walked the full length of the catwalk when her name was called, collected her white flower from the announcer, bowed slightly, and returned to the wings. The applause faded into polite chatter, but not from them. Her parents navigated through the crowd like they were guests of honor, pausing briefly at each stranger as if to explain their presence. They reached her just as Jude moved aside to give her space. "We're proud of you," her mother said first. Her voice wavered like a flag in light wind, hopeful but paper-thin. Eliza looked at her, then at her father, who offered a small nod. She recognized the gesture. It was the same one he gave bank clerks and distant neighbors. She smiled, polite, composed, unmoved. "I have nothing to give you today," she said. "No venom, no apology, just truth." She turned and walked away, her shoulders square beneath the spotlight spill. Jude caught up beside her and gently linked his arm through hers. The applause rose again behind them, unplanned, instinctive. Not for the close this time, but for the choice. Eliza didn't look back. Dr. Clara stood by the entrance, arms crossed, lips curled ever so slightly upward. She didn't wave, just nodded. Once, firmly, as Eliza passed. At the door, her phone buzzed in her clutch. A message from her advisor. "You've been nominated for the Paris Design Exchange. Pack a coat." She didn't cry. Not this time. Under the bright lights of her own triumph, Eliza didn't need revenge. She chose release, and in that choice, she reclaimed everything once taken from her in silence. Her dignity wasn't shouted from rooftops. It walked calmly past those who once drained her, untouched and unbothered. Justice, as it turned out, didn't come with fury. It came wrapped in red silk and stitched scars, made visible for all to see. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Sometimes the boldest act of power is not confrontation, but walking away with nothing left to prove.